Hi, and welcome to Inside a Korean, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the amazing work being done by the Korean team. I'm Neelam, Commercial Director for Corporate Services, and joining me today, straight from the motherland of South Africa, now leading the global corporate strategy, the commercially fearless Leon Kruger. Leon, how are you?
Hi, Neelam. I'm doing very well, thanks. No fresh complaints. I've really been looking forward to getting this invite to your podcast. So, I'm looking forward to what the next hour holds.
I'm really excited to have you today and had been waiting to do this podcast with you when you're here. So, Leon, for anyone who doesn't know you, who doesn't know your brilliant career that you've had, tell us more about you.
So, yes, as you rightly mentioned, I'm from South Africa. So, born and raised in South Africa. I have a wife and two wonderful kids. I lived in Mauritius for 4 years and relocated back to South Africa earlier this year. I started out my career with one of the insurance giants in Africa, and then subsequently moved to the Korean team in the beginning of 2021. And I served 4 years there as the client services director, really being at the forefront of clients, of their needs, trying to anticipate their needs and to ensure that we are agile in the way that we deal with our clients from a Korean perspective.
It's not so common that you do South Africa, Mauritius, back to South Africa. What triggered this change?
Yes, that's quite interesting. I think from a personal point of view, it also changed it a bit. I'm really am a family man, so that for me was one of the reasons for moving back to South Africa. But from a business front as well, having to lead a global team, being based out of New York all the way to Hong Kong, it's quite a neutral time zone. But also Africa being extremely important to us. I know that Mauritius is part of Africa, but really being on the ground in Africa and South Africa also being a big buying center for Mauritius and for the UAE and the Korean as a company, it really made sense for me to be back in South Africa and being able to face off with clients physically.
And how had these experiences, both in South Africa and in Mauritius, shape your view for the need for corporate services across Africa?
Yes, so having had the privilege of working in both these jurisdictions, which are keystone jurisdictions in terms of the financial and legal sector for Africa, I think starting it out in South Africa, which has a huge depth in human capital, it has a very sophisticated banking and financial sector, and also the legal system in South Africa is working very well. And that really instilled the regulatory rigor within me. Then moving to Mauritius, which is an extremely agile jurisdiction, always trying to innovate, always trying to have the client at heart and the ease of doing business aspect to that. That really helped me a lot in being a bit more agile, really understanding the multi-jurisdictional complex structuring of our clients. And I firmly believe that the combination and experiences that I've gained out of these two jurisdictions has shaped my views that there's a lot of potential in Africa, a lot of untapped potential in Africa, and I'm really optimistic about the future of Africa.
So, when we are talking about this untapped potential and the acceleration, we talk a lot in terms of the African jurisdictions about leapfrog growth, where you're literally skipping from the old systems into newer ones. How do you feel now that you're in this global role that our global corporate strategies, our global corporate services, we are able to partner with these African jurisdictions to help them accelerate in terms of going from more traditional to now more modern in terms of their entity management, compliance, or even governance frameworks?
Yes, definitely. I think that's a very good observation. African growth isn't linear, as you rightly mentioned, and really in the fintech space, in the infrastructure space, we do see a lot of growth in Africa. The advantage for us at Akorian is that the wide variety of clients that we work with, the really international flavor that we have in our books, I truly believe it's our obligation that we do some knowledge transfer to our clients and to potential clients and to business partners, because we really need to be the bridge for Africa and for the rest of the world. If we do that well, and we can anticipate the needs of our clients and educate them well, it will make sure that the way that they operate a bit more transparent, that they abide by the regulatory standards. And by doing that, that will really help the foreign investors coming in and institutional investors coming into Africa to know that it's a sophisticated market, it's a transparent market, and it's a market that is vibrant and really looking to grow so that we can attract more capital for Africa. So I do think that's the role that we need to play, is to really just educate our client base and business partners so that they can also come on the journey with us and become a lot more sophisticated.
Yeah, and when you're talking about these partners that you're working with, you rightly mentioned we're working with a lot of investors, international investors, institutional investors. But a lot of times, these investors, when they are looking to invest into Africa, they would go for the main hubs, right? South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria. Apart from these big hubs, which jurisdiction do you feel is quietly becoming very compelling for us as a market for our corporate services? And what would you say would be the structural change that's driving this shift?
Yes, that's a very good question. And we all know the tried and tested jurisdictions from Africa. For me, I would say jurisdictions like Namibia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, more the Southern Africa ones, and then also jurisdictions like Ghana is really becoming more and more sophisticated. And it can be because of two things, that a market flourishes or that there's a need to structure offshore. And for me, it's usually when either it's going very well in the country and things are working very well, so there's more product to ship, or there's more investors wanting to come into the projects. But then on the other side, when things aren't going well, then people want to externalize their assets. So I think that is probably the driving force behind these type of jurisdictions growing. I mean, Africa, a lot of people just refer to Africa as Africa, but they don't know how many countries there are in Africa. So definitely I might have missed out on a few, but I think from our perspective, those are the ones that we'll definitely keep a keen eye on.
Don't you love it when someone tells you, I went to Africa, and you have to ask, but where?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's so funny. It's also like when someone tells you they've went to South Africa. I mean, South Africa has so many different pockets.
Yeah.
And even if you deal with someone from Stellenbosch versus someone from Cape Town, it's vastly different in the way that they do operate.
Yeah.
So yes, huge continent and also big countries.
But talking about South Africa, and as you rightly mentioned in the beginning, there has been a good evolution in terms of the banking system, the regulatory system, the legal system, and you have been witnessing all of that. What would you say, in your perspective, are the under leverage opportunities across South Africa that are non-obvious but high impact?
Yes, I definitely think the intellectual capital and human capital in South Africa is something that's untapped. And I would be a strong advocate for clients and companies to set up a regional hub in South Africa, especially those in the fintech space or virtual asset space, or the banking and financial sector space. I think South Africa has a lot of experts in that areas, and they can easily tap into that. Then what I also think South Africa can be instrumental in the growth of Africa is the pension system that South Africa has, and that allows a lot of institutional capital that can be deployed cross-border or within South Africa itself. And I think that's a big opportunity for co-investing by other DFIs coming in, and the more sophisticated LPs also coming in from other continents, from Europe, from UK, from the US, to really have a partner that's rooted in Africa, and to help them also deploy their capital that can make a meaningful impact in the continent, but also in terms of infrastructure. So I think those would be the things that I would focus on if I'm a client or investor looking to come in.
When you're talking about virtual assets, so currently we are in Dubai. When you're in the Middle East and you have investors looking, to get license for virtual assets, for cryptos, in their minds they would think Dubai. Hong Kong, maybe the US in terms of getting their licenses. What I found super surprising when we are doing business trips in South Africa is when we are meeting advisors in the space or even clients that were able to get virtual asset service provider licenses. It's amazing how many of them have been able to get the license, and it's very well thought in terms of the auditing, in terms of the compliance, and that is something that a lot of people don't realize, the extent that South Africa has grown in terms of need for new services, right?
Yes, yes, definitely. And I think the whole ecosystem is benefiting from that and can benefit from that. I mean, you rightly mentioned in the way that they approach the auditing, we have business partners that we work with, and this guy is the first one to have his PhD
Yeah.
in how you audit these type of transactions as well. So definitely that is something that's untapped in the South
Yeah.
African market, and something that might be a compelling argument for someone to also look into that market. And like I mentioned, a regional type of hub, or just tapping into that expertise that we have in South Africa.
And now, because we are in Dubai, it's good that we talk a bit about the region, about Middle East. So when you are looking at the Middle East region in GCC, what is the growth and opportunity that you see in terms of our corporate services in the next 3 to 5 years? And for these opportunities, what would you say would be the driving force that has helped grow this kind of influence for us to be able to tap in more into this market?
So this UAE region is extremely important for us at Accordion. It's not as if only the last 2 or 3 years we decided to enter this market. We've been here for more than a decade, which started out predominantly as a private client offering and a corporate offering. We now have a full-fledged service offering. So regulatory and compliance, fund administration, and then private clients and corporate services. So for us, this is an extremely important region. We are able to cover our clients' needs in Dubai and in Abu Dhabi as well. And we really want to be part of the growth trajectory in this region. So we are definitely scaling up our presence in this market in terms of headcount, in terms of service offering, ensuring that we are always where our clients need us and that we can provide them the services that they do actually need. So for us, this is an exciting journey to grow and scale this office. We have extremely competent subject matter experts on the ground. So it is really something that is of strategic relevance for us at the Korean Group, and yeah, very excited about the future.
And what would you say has driven this kind of change in the Middle East for us to be able to tap into more into this booming ecosystem?
Yes, that's a good question, because usually when the market is flourishing, it's not something that we did. So we have to follow on what the regulator did, and how agile they are and how innovative they are and how they want to grow. So when you drive around in Dubai, all you see is growth. It's just constantly growing and growing and growing. And that's attracting a lot of people that are moving here, that are moving their companies here, their international structures, whether it's from a trading perspective or from a fund setup. So that has really necessitated the urgency for us to make sure that we also take part in this growth. And I think it's a lovely environment for a lot of people coming from abroad. There's so many different cultures here. It's amazing to see how vibrant this city is. So yes.
And you're saying in terms of the fund setup, and as you rightly mentioned, we just got our license for fund administration in DIFC. So when these clients are coming to Accordion for our corporate services, because now we have that full extent of services, not just in Dubai, but across other jurisdictions, what are adjacent service lines that they should be thinking about, but most of them are not and are just stopping to corporate services?
Yes, so if we talk broadly, and if we focus a bit more on the African market and how that is evolving, for me, it's very difficult to differentiate when it comes to a corporate client and a private client. If you look at the context of the African market, then everyone that is a private client or ultra net worth individual won't say everyone, but most of them, has a corporate at the back that generated that wealth for them, whether it's generational wealth or whether it's a startup that they do have now. So when it comes to corporate services, it's always extremely important to remember that you also need a vehicle where you can preserve your capital or you can grow your capital or your wealth or your assets, and that you do it for future generations. If you look at Mauritius, then you will probably 90% of the time go for a trust, but not a lot of people know the compelling offering in terms of foundations and also of family offices that we do have in Mauritius. If you cast your eye to Dubai, then foundations is the one that's probably the more tried and tested and preferred route. But also we can assist when it comes to trusts and to family offices. So that's extremely important. The other one that people usually miss out when you think about corporates and the clients we have is also how our fund clients can benefit from us having a very nice network of corporate clients. And we really try to anticipate our clients' needs. And we have live examples where we have introduced some of our corporate clients to our fund clients. We step away from the conversation because for us it's just a value add, so that we can ensure that our private equity clients have sufficient opportunities when they want to deploy their capital, and that they know that it is a company that's also with us and that it's a company that is compliant. It is a thriving business. And that way we want to make sure that our clients can leverage from our network. We've also seen in a few instances where we've introduced private clients. They've built up a big business and they want to exit, they want to retire, or the next generation doesn't want to keep going on with the business. And then we also either introduce a corporate client or a private equity fund type of client so that they can have a conversation, because you might have a corporate that wants to expand into a different sector or into a different market or consolidate that market. So that's very important for us, and that's very important for clients to keep at the back of their mind when they also choose their service provider, but also choose the structure that they want to go into.
Because we have been doing so many meetings together across different jurisdictions. So we have both been talking to clients about, when choosing your corporate service provider, see what's the value adding. And the biggest one, I would say, would really be the matchmaking, right? But you have been doing that since you were based in the Mauritius offices and your role was more local, and now that your role is more international and more global, how do you see that transition for you in terms of the role that you're doing, and in terms of, you know, the new network, the new opportunities that you see across the different jurisdictions where we service?
Yes, definitely. For me, it's extremely important to have the client's interest at heart and always put the client first. So that really helped me to be agnostic in the way that I do approach clients. So in Mauritius, at the time, I led the funds team, the private clients team, and the corporate services team. So we always wanted to make sure that we cut across all three different service lines, as we call it at Accordion. So making sure that every service line can leverage and really put their full potential towards the client, and make sure that the client also can feel the value of being with a truly global service provider like ourselves. Now that my role is a bit more global, and I have been doing this in Mauritius as well, but now there's a bit more of a focus, again, being agnostic, but not just in service lines, being agnostic in jurisdictions. And that really ensures that our client's interest remains the primary focus. So it's not about a discussion to ensure that a client is channeled towards a certain jurisdiction. It's rather doing fact finding and then applying the knowledge that I've gained from all our other clients and in the way that they structure. Obviously not giving the client advice, but hand-holding him and guiding them to the appropriate jurisdiction, and then getting the right person on the call that's a subject matter expert that can discuss in more depth what that jurisdiction can do for them, what the pros and cons are, because there might be some pitfalls as well. So it's very important to be transparent and honest with clients to ensure that they make a well-informed decision and that they are happy with the jurisdiction that they decide on. We are obviously present in so many different jurisdictions and the well-reputed financial centers. So we'll be able to tick any box of the client in terms of the jurisdictions that they do want to structure in. With a lot of clients also having a large global footprint, it's also very helpful that they can have, like, I won't say a one-stop shop because we don't provide all the ancillary services, but that they can work with one dedicated service provider across different jurisdictions, and that we can help to educate them in each of these jurisdictions, because it might be that they're expanding into new markets, and they want to do a bit more due diligence on the markets and how it works in those markets. So I think that is extremely helpful.
Though you say you're agnostic to the different jurisdictions where we are present, I'm sure on your radar you must have a couple of jurisdictions that are emerging in terms of the need for corporate services that potentially family offices or clients seeking cross-border structuring might be looking at. What would be those jurisdictions?
Yes, definitely. That's quite an interesting question, and there's so much around different jurisdictions that the clients' needs and where they are actually from dictate usually which jurisdiction we use. So for us at Aquarian, we are heavily focusing on the UAE, which for us is extremely important. We also make an asserted effort in the US. That's also extremely good market for us. And then also in Asia, we do have a very good presence in Asia. And that's also another jurisdiction. Well, if you look at Hong Kong and Singapore, the two jurisdictions that we want to scale as well. When it comes to corporate services, we are also extremely sophisticated in our incentive schemes, employee incentive schemes, and that's predominantly run out of Jersey. So even though we are well established in that market, that is one that we are also making sure that we are at the forefront of. And then Luxembourg. Luxembourg is always one that's top of mind for different companies and different clients. And we see great growth coming from our Luxembourg office.
Yeah, definitely. But I want to get a bit more personal with regards to the questions now. We have talked a lot about corporate services and about Aquarian. Now more about you in this business environment that we are in. So from your perspective, tell us about one client story where the corporate structure might have made the difference, and what insight did you get from that?
Yes, we have a private client in South Africa. They have a trust with us in one of our jurisdictions. And just as a courtesy visit, I went to their wine farm.
Oh, bad life, tough life.
Absolutely. They asked me to sample some of their wines.
Oh, tough.
So what started out as just talking generally about their trust and asset protection and how they are growing their wealth, the wine obviously tastes great. So the international markets also want these wines, and they do get it, but not at the scale I think that they can export them from South Africa. So that led into the next conversation, which was a trading entity that was set up in one of our jurisdictions, which is extremely advantageous for trading. And having the right tax advisors on board and having the right transfer pricing advisors on board, we really made this happen for the client, and they're extremely happy because the volumes that they now export and then the hard currency that they can keep through this transfer pricing mechanism in this jurisdiction is really beneficial for them, because they're also externalizing now their wealth to a bigger and larger extent.
Yeah, I think just with this story, you've gained millions of younger audience wanting to work in corporate services. So bravo on
yes,
that.
It's not as plain vanilla as it sounds.
And speaking of not plain vanilla, what's the most exotic place where you've closed a deal? And tell us maybe a funny story that comes with that.
Yes, that's a very interesting question. The one that comes to mind, and I have to laugh a bit about this, is that we played a round of golf very nice golf course in Southern Africa. And I played with one of my very close friends. He's also a lawyer, well reputed. And after the golf event, we had a few drinks, and there was another prominent sports person in our four-ball. And this person was complaining about someone not paying him his money, which is also a sports person himself that's not paying him his money. And then after a short discussion on a napkin, they wrote out a contract. They signed. We signed as witnesses.
Yeah.
And 1 month later, my friend was able to get him his money back. And out of that flowed, again, a new client because of this networking that we did, because of the way that my friend could do problem solving for him. My friend could then be the bridge and the intermediary between me and this sports person. And yes, we gained a new client out of that.
And you know how both of us, we love doing in terms of networking events, doing sport related activities. But because I know you really love sports, whether it's golf, rugby, paddle, I want to ask you something. If you were not in corporate services in an alternate universe, what would be your plan B? What would you be doing right now?
Yes, definitely. I love sport. I was unfortunately not good enough in sport to make a life out of it. But given the experience that I've built up in the financial sector, the fact that I really love leading people as well, and to think a bit more laterally and be strategic, and the love for sport, I would love to be the CEO of a sports club, whether it's a football club or a rugby club or anything like that. Really staying close to the sport, but also being able to impart my knowledge that I've gained in the business sector. So that's my ideal job if it wasn't for this role.
Do you have a sports team in mind already?
Well, I love the Springboks. So
that was not so non-obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, that would be the ideal dream job. Sorry, Mr. Mark Alexander, but that would be the dream job for me.
My last question for you, Leon. If you were to give one piece of advice to a fellow South African looking for offshore structuring, what would be that advice?
Start early. I think a lot of people accumulate wealth and then they want to look at offshore structuring. I know that it's not always feasible if you start too early, but start early so that you have your structures in place, so that when the money starts flowing, that you'll already have externalized your assets, and it's much easier then to attract foreign investors into your company when you've already built up that track record. So really start early. The second piece of advice would be just to have proper service providers accompany you. I'm not talking just about a corporate service provider. From a tax point of view, that is extremely important. Also in a proper law firm. So that would be my two pieces of advice. Yes.
And very valuable piece of advice. Leon, thank you so much for being on my podcast today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And it was long awaited. And thank you everyone for joining us today to Inside the Korean. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye.